Pac-Man has one of the most mysterious lores in all of video game history. The ghosts and/or monsters. What is even Pac-Man anyway? The mazes? How does all this stuff even make sense? Who created the power pellets? Why does Pac-Man want to eat dots all the time? Well, anyway, I'm a huge Pac-Man nut, so I thought I'd make a fun little video where I talk about every single Pac-Man ghost in the history of Pac-Man, and why not? So let's get started. Well, let's first talk about the four originals, the Fab Four. Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde. The Beatles of Pac-Man. Number 1, Blinky. Blinky, in my opinion, I always viewed him as like the leader of the four originals. I consider him to be the fastest of all of them when I play the game. At least that's what it feels like to me. Unlike the three other ones, he is the one that's not a dumbass. One thing I'll say about Blinky is that if Blinky finds you, then you're fucked. Then he's locked in on you, and he's gonna chase you down and hunt you down until you find a fucking power pellet. Blinky is vicious. That red bastard. He's always a pain in the ass, but he was always my favorite of the four originals. Because one of my favorite colors is red. He just seems so badass, but he always pisses me off. He always thinks he's better than you. And fuck that, I'm Pac-Man, damn it. Looking back on the history of the series, you could actually say that Blinky is one of Pac-Man's greatest antagonists, dating back from his original debut in the 1980 arcade machine. Each of the ghosts have a nickname that is listed next to them at the beginning of the arcade machine. And for Blinky's, it's Shadow. Now, when I was younger, I used to be actually confused, and I thought that was his name. I think I might know why they nicknamed him Shadow. It may have something to do with the fact that he's just so damn fast. From what I can say in my experience of playing the game, he'll just come up on you out of nowhere, where you wouldn't even see it coming. It's like he's lurking and flying by in the shadows, waiting for you to show up. Number 2, Pinky. Pinky is the only female ghost of the four originals. She is classic, one of the most memorable Pac-Man characters of all time. Did you know that Pinky has a big crush on Pac-Man? It's explored later in the later Pac-Man games. I find that very interesting that they chose to do that. Even though Pac-Man is married to Mrs. Pac-Man, it's interesting that they wanted to create maybe a love triangle kind of story thing, and how they're both different species and they're both completely different people, and it's like deep down Pinky doesn't really want to destroy Pac-Man. It's like she feels pressured or something, like just palling around with the boys, and like through the adventures of her trying to chase him, she just started having feelings for him. They really could have went so much deeper with this kind of anime-esque love triangle stuff with Pinky, Pac-Man, and Mrs. Pac-Man in like the later games and stuff with the cutscenes and everything, but they never did it. I think they just played it way too safe. It's an idea that's really great that I always loved, and I wish it was explored way more. It is explored quite a bit in Pac-Man World 2, but other than that, not so much. Pinky is the second strongest ghost of the four originals. Yes, she'll chase you if she finds you, but eventually she'll give up, or she'll lose you. Unlike Blinky, who will follow your ass to the end of fucking time. Pinky is no slouch, but she can be defeated quite easily if you're a pretty expert player. Unlike fucking Blinky! Number 3 and 4, Inky and Clyde. I'm gonna lump them both together because they're both kind of a joke. Inky is not as stupid as Clyde, and Clyde is the ultimate dumbass. If you get killed by Clyde, then you're really, really bad at Pac-Man. You were just having a bad day. Inky is kind of a pain in the ass, but Inky's kind of like a hornet or a bee. If you leave it alone, he'll leave you alone. But if you start flying by him a lot and bothering him, then he'll come attack you. Clyde just fucking does nothing. He just floats around everywhere, all over the place. It almost seems like Clyde isn't even looking for you. That's what's so amazing and great about the original Pac-Man game. It's not just fun to get all the dots and eat the ghosts. this other element to the game that makes it so much greater that people still play to this very day is that each and every one of the ghosts have their own distinct personality, and they have their own tactics of how they're trying to kill you. And you have to be the man, the ultimate Pac-Man, and defeat them all, and study each and every one of their tactics, whether it's the dumb ones or the smart ones. Well, that's it for the 4 originals. Number 5, we have Sue. Now, originally, all 4 of the same ghosts appear in both Pac-Man and Mrs. Pac-Man. Sue first appeared in Mrs. Pac-Man and was the same color as Clyde. So they basically changed Clyde's name to Sue. So in Mrs. Pac-Man, you got 2 girl ghosts. However, during the release of Pac-Mania, one of my favorite Pac-Man games, I don't know why people hate it so much, but anyway, Sue actually appears in the game, and she is now purple. So they now corrected the whole Sue and Clyde are the same character thing. Pretty cool that we finally have a different color ghost. You could kind of argue that Sue is almost one of the originals of the original 4. And Sue is pretty interesting. I wish we got to see more of Sue, but that's really kind of about it. Although it was really cool that they included her in Pac-Mania, because now in Pac-Mania you have the 4 originals and Sue. So Pac-Mania was bringing all the classic things into the new semi-3D Pac-Man experience. So really, when you look at it, Pac-Mania is kind of the ultimate classic version of Pac-Man because it has the 5 original ghosts in the game. And it's the only Pac-Man game where all 5 of them chase you. Kind of funny. I mean, you could make some argument back in the day and say that Sue was like Clyde's girlfriend or something, and that's why they're both the same color and all that. But anyway, moving on. Number 6, Pal. Well, her real name is Miru in Japanese. Basically, she's actually a good ghost and becomes, well, Pac-Man's pal in the arcade game Pac-N-Pal. When you play the game, she helps you and gives you fruit and stuff like that. And she's got a big pink bow on her head. A really interesting character that they actually have a ghost character that teams up with Pac-Man and is against the 4 other ghosts. This is also something that could be explored in another Pac-Man game, like an adventure game where Pal shows up and they could have dialogue between the ghosts and why she decided to leave them and why she teams up with Pac-Man and all that. It's really something that could be explored in an anniversary Pac-Man game later on. Anyway, she doesn't really have any other appearances other than her grand debut in Pac-N-Pal, but I do think that her pink bow and pink feet kind of remind me of Minnie Mouse. Number 7, Yum Yum. That's right, there's a Pac-Man ghost named Yum Yum who appeared in Junior Pac-Man. Now, Yum Yum is actually the daughter of Blinky. I think the top of her head is supposed to be like a bow, and she's also becomes the girlfriend of Junior Pac-Man in the cutscenes of the game. How interesting is that? Now that is similar to Pinky having a crush on Pac-Man, which didn't go anywhere because Pac-Man wound up with Mrs. Pac-Man. But his son became engaged to Blinky's daughter. And again, this could have gone on to being something so much more in the later games. Junior Pac-Man makes these cameo appearances in the Pac-Man World games in the 2000s and stuff, but he really hasn't had another game, and they really didn't do anything with Junior Pac-Man. I mean, I think that's unfortunate. I think it's a waste that they didn't continue with this idea that they did in that arcade game. And honestly, in general, Junior Pac-Man as a game is a very underrated Pac-Man game, and an arcade game too. I love that game. Can someone explain to me in the comments section below why the hell Junior Pac-Man was literally never released on any Pac-Man compilation? I'm just baffled by that because I love Junior Pac-Man and it just makes no fucking sense. Number 8, Tim. Tim is a ghost that only appears in Junior Pac-Man. He's orange, just like Clyde, and just like the original version of Sue. There's not much to say about Tim, but he is named after the lead programmer for the game of Junior Pac-Man. Number 9, Funky. Funky is a ghost that appears in Pac-Mania, a green ghost who is one of the toughest in the game. I wish that they did more with Funky, although I heard that he reappeared in the game Pac-Man 256, which was a game that was based off of the final level of the original Pac-Man arcade game, which is pretty interesting. But I really like the name Funky, and I love funk music and disco from the 70s, and that's what it makes me think of. And number 10, Spunky. She's a female ghost from Pac-Mania. A little gray ghost. She's harder to avoid than Funky. And I think it's really interesting that Pac-Mania not only brought back Sue, but tried to introduce new Pac-Man ghosts to the series. But once again, just like many other ghosts on this list, a lot of these ghost characters don't really return later on, and I think they should make this special Pac-Man game where it's like every ghost from the history of Pac-Man that has chased him in the past, they're all in the game. Pac-Man doesn't need to just avoid the 4 originals, he has to avoid all of the famous ghosts. There's like 10 ghosts chasing him, and it's like a giant maze and stuff. Number 11, Kinky. Kinky is a gold ghost, apparently, and I remember him fondly from Pac-Man Arrangement, a game I played a million times when I was a teenager on the PS2, which is an amazing Pac-Man game. If any Pac-Man fan out there, if you haven't played Pac-Man Arrangement, you're really missing out. It adds all these amazing elements to Pac-Man that we never seen before. But anyway, Kinky doesn't hurt Pac-Man during regular gameplay. In fact, he'll zoom right past you. I think he's also notable for being the only ghost in Pac-Man to wear glasses. His special ability is that he can combine with another ghost to become like a fatter ghost and then like chase you around the map. So he's quite an interesting character, but once again, this was his only appearance. Number 12, Orson. Orson first appeared in the original Pac-Man world in 1999 and was actually the ghost that was inside the robot Pac-Man. And so he was a villain in the first game. Then he later appeared in Pac-Man World 3 as Pac-Man's ally and actually helped assist him in trying to defeat the evil alien Irwin. So he's an interesting character because they did so many things with Orson that they never did with other ghost characters. And he plays like an interesting kind of major role in both Pac-Man World 1 and 3. I really like that the third Pac-Man world ties in with the first game by including Orson in it. And number 13, we'll save the best for last. My favorite, Spooky. Spooky became the leader of the ghosts in Pac-Man World 2. He's a very powerful being, and it's even debated whether he's a ghost or not, but I think he's a ghost. He's very powerful. We're not really sure why he has all these mysterious powers. In the game, they explain that he was first killed by Sir Pax-a-Lot, I think, and had something to do with the storyline, with the golden fruits and whatever. And he was just a really cool, badass fucking villain in Pac-Man, and I love Spooky. The only other appearance I remember Spooky being in was a playable racer in Pac-Man World Rally for the PS2. He also has like a powerful staff, he has like claws on his hands, he's got devil horns. In that original cutscene, he comes out from underneath the tree, and the ghosts are actually scared of him. Despite the fact that they are ghosts and they're mischievous, they're nothing compared to Spooky. He like towers over them. He's taller than them. He intimidates the ghosts. He's like an evil ghost. Whereas the 4 originals are just kind of like, they're a bunch of baddies, those ghosts, but they're not really evil.
At last, I am free from the confines of this accursed prison. You there, take these golden fruit that imprisoned me and follow me if you want to get rid of these pack people forever!
So in Pac-Man World 2, like in the middle of Pac-Land is this big tree, and it's a special tree because it holds the golden fruit. And underneath the tree, out comes Spooky. I think Spooky is supposed to represent the devil, and that's why he's got devil horns, and he's evil, and he wants to take over Pac-Land. So basically, the tree in Pac-Land is supposed to represent the tree from the Garden of Eden, And the golden fruit, the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the 4 classic ghosts, they steal each of the golden fruit, and then out come the devil. You know, the devil is there to tempt them, to make them sin, basically. Yeah, I wish he appeared in more games. I wish he returned. He just became one of the coolest Pac-Man characters ever, right from his first appearance. I know I said that I was going to talk about every single ghost in Pac-Man, but I kind of don't want to. Those are the most memorable ghosts to me, and I think those are the most memorable ghosts to most Pac-Man fans. A lot of them have their place in Pac history. Even ghosts that only appeared in one game are still memorable, like Yum Yum, Pal, Kinky, stuff like that. I mean, this whole video just makes me feel so nostalgic talking about all the ghosts and Pac-Man history and all my memories of playing all these games. What are the different personalities of all the ghosts, the mysteries behind them, and how all these ghosts, they became memorable to people for generations, and hopefully will continue to be. And hopefully these ghosts will return, and they'll do something really cool and interesting with them. I don't want Pac-Man to just be being the same thing over and over again. Pac-Man has legs. He can waka waka for a long time, but let's just not keep it all the same shit. Pac-Man should expand and show no fear and do something new and interesting. Of course, you can't have Pac-Man without the ghosts.